Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. When last we left, Abraham had just had his father pass away. He's already moved out from Ur of the Chaldees, which is basically Babylon, and he's headed westward towards the Promised Land, the Levant, Israel as we know it today. And that's where we pick up our story in Genesis chapter 12, and we'll get to chapter 13 afterwards. The Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from your native land and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and curse him that curses you. And all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you." Abraham went forth as the Lord had commanded him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. Abram took his wife Sarai and his brother's son Lot, and all the wealth that they had amassed, and the persons they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land as far as the site of Shechem, at the terebinth of Moreh. The Canaanites were then in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "I will assign this land to your offspring." And he built there an altar to the Lord, who had appeared to him. And from there he moved on to the hill country east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And he built there an altar to the Lord, and invoked the Lord by name. Then Abram journeyed by stages towards the Negev. There was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for there was famine with severe in the land. And he was about to enter Egypt. He said to his wife Sarai, "I know what a beautiful wife you are. If the Egyptians see you and think, 'She is my wife,' they will kill me and let you live. Please say that you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that I may remain alive thanks to you." When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw how very beautiful the woman was. Pharaoh's courtiers saw her and praised her to the Pharaoh, and the woman was taken to the Pharaoh's palace. And because of her it went well with Abram, and he acquired sheep, oxen, asses, male and female slaves, she-asses, and camels. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his household with mighty plagues, on account of Sarai, the wife of Abram. Pharaoh sent for Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say, 'She is my sister,' so I took her as my wife? Now here is your wife, take her and be gone." And Pharaoh put men in charge of him, and they sent him off with his wife and all he possessed. Weird chapter. They don't really get sane. Every chapter is unique. It's a little snowflake all of its own, and each one is interesting. Now, first of all, we're going to concentrate on a small little bit of wording where Abram invoked the Lord by name. If you remember back, just before the flood, one of the things that they were frowning on was people invoking the Lord by name. This kind of kicks off the curse on the land, etc. Yet Abram somehow is able to execute this sorcery and not be punished by it. Again, in the Apocrypha, the books that are not allowed in the Bible, they made 2 tablets, one of clay and one of bronze, with the idea being, if the world perished in fire, it would bake the clay and make it permanent and keep the secrets, and the one of bronze, if the world ended in water, the clay tablet would dissolve, and the bronze tablet would be able to keep the secrets going forward. So this explains, in an apocryphal sense, how this magic of invoking the Lord managed to continue. but it's not recognized in the Bible, so I have to include it as an aside, as a maybe, as a something that might have happened. There's a famine in the land. This is where things get troubling. However, there is a reason why Abram tells his wife Sarai, that to say that she was his sister. Abram technically wasn't lying, but we're going to have to wait a little bit to find out the reason why Abram is technically telling the truth and not lying to the Pharaoh. And if you notice, when they're talking about the possessions that are being given to Abram, they talk about sheep, oxen, asses, then male and female servants. It's kind of thrown in there. Then she-asses, female donkeys, and camels. No matter which order of priority you put that in, it's weird to bury human slaves in the middle of all that. It's like they're kind of an afterthought. But we know slavery in the ancient times was very different than how we think of it today. I'm not going to say it was accepted, but it was kind of the way that business was done. We also see this interesting pattern about God infecting Egypt with plagues. This is not the last time we're going to hear about it, although probably the last time for this chapter of the Bible. No, sorry, this book of the Bible. We'll hear about it in Exodus a little bit. We'll hear about it in Deuteronomy, although it's plagues on the Philistines. God eventually decided he hates the Philistines more. But we can see that he's in the land of the Canaanites, the descendant of Canaan, the cursed one, the youngest of Ham's sons, Ham, son of Noah. There's going to be a conflict here, but again, it's going to take place much later. Let's go into chapter 13. From Egypt, Abram went up into the Negev with his wife and all he possessed, together with Lot. Now Abram was very rich in cattle, silver, and gold, and he proceeded by stages from the Negev as far as Bethel, to a place where his tent had been formerly between Bethel and Ai, the site of the altar that he had built there at first, and there Abram invoked the Lord by name. Lot, who went with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, so that the land could not support them staying together, for their possessions were so great they could not remain together. And there was quarreling between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and those of Lot's cattle. The Canaanites and Perizzites were then dwelling in the land. Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no strife between you and me, between my herdsmen and yours, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Let us separate. If you go north, I will go south, and if you go south, I will go north." Lot looked about him, and he saw how well watered was the whole plain of Jordan, all of it. This was before the Lord had destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, all the way to Zoar, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan, and Lot journeyed eastward. Thus they parted from each other. Abram remained in the land of Canaan, while Lot studied in the cities of the plain, pitching his tents near Sodom. Now the inhabitants of the Sodom were very wicked sinners against the Lord. And the Lord said to Abram after Lot had parted from him, "Raise your eyes and look out from where you are, to the north and south, to the east and west, for I give all the land that you see to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring as the dust of the earth, so that if one can count the dust of your earth, your offspring too can be counted. Up, walk about the land through its length and its breadth, for I give it to you." And Abram moved his tent and came to dwell at the terebinths of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and he built an altar there to the Lord. Surprisingly, pretty concise little chapter there. So Abram's still taking care of his brother's son, his nephew. He's being a good uncle. He even offers him his choice of the best pasture. But what's interesting is this kind of puts a big lie. These past two chapters put a big lie to the image of Abraham as a simple, wandering shepherd. He walks into Egypt and he gets a king's reception. He gets gifts. These are things that are normally reserved for foreign dignitaries. And Abram, bringing around his nephew is not just anybody. His nephew has riches as well. There's so much between the two of them, they can't stay together. So, ultimately, they have to separate. And that's just simply because Abram doesn't want to fight his own kin. It's kind of one of those unspoken laws that family looks out for family, no matter what culture that you're in. Lot, unfortunately, decides to go in the direction of Sodom and Gomorrah, whereas Abram remains in the land of the Canaanites, Hebron in particular. And once again, we see he builds a new altar. He's basically setting up a center of worship for the Lord wherever he goes. This is not something a simple shepherd will do. Shepherds have rituals. There's certain things that lay people do. But being able to set up and consecrate an altar, that takes an actual instructed religious leader. He walks into Egypt, which had a very strong mythology of its own, a very strong pharaoh. Walked out. Diplomatic immunity, you might call it in the modern day and age. He's wandering around the land of Canaan, which we've already seen has been controlled by many descendants of Canaan and their various tribes. And they leave him alone because he's a powerful man with servants, with asses, with donkeys, all sorts of things. Camels. The camels come of importance later. This ain't no shepherd that we're talking about. He came from Ur of the Chaldees, which is a pretty significant city in Babylon. His father was a man of means. He was able to move around, support multiple wives, multiple children, and Abraham too becomes, by default, the eldest. Now his middle brother kind of disappears. We don't hear from him again. But Lot, we're going to hear from Lot. This is kind of the ending between Abraham and Lot, but Lot's line becomes significant in the future. But just know that Abraham is wandering around, and wherever he sees conflict, he's able to step in and see a solution and propose it. These are the actions of a man of power. Erecting an altar. I can't emphasize how much to you what it means to erect an altar. It's not just building a fireplace, it's the ritual, it's knowing the proper alignments. It might not be as mathematical as we would think today, but there was still a way to align it, a way to make it proper. And every culture pretty much does this. The average person will set up a personal altar, but it's a difference between that and one that you're going to invoke the great God of the universe. And you notice that the God has already kind of gone from this person walking around the garden in Genesis, earlier. And then even when the tower is around, he's saying, come, let us go take care of this. All of a sudden, God is even more removed from humanity at this point. Maybe that's because there's more humans, so he has to step back to be able to see it all. Or maybe, and more accurately, in my opinion, God is becoming more distant. Because, you get 100 of the most intelligent people in the world together, they become a stupid mob. And the ancients were not fools, but at the same token, we know that they have cities, we know they have all sorts of things. Doubtless, some unsavory things were happening. So there we are. Abraham, the origin story. Abraham rises, if you will. And we can see Abraham is not just this simple shepherd that we see in every single book. He has gifts. He has the gift of the gab, the ability to talk to people, but he is also, at the moment, a man of peace. He's trying to avoid conflict with the Pharaoh. He's trying to avoid conflict with Lot. So it does look like Abraham is a good man in the respect that his first instinct is not to go to war. His first instinct is to try to negotiate. Let's see how that works out for him. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to get the merchandise. I'll put a link below. The Secrets of Solomon is one of my books that I wrote. It's kind of a sneak preview for much later in the Bible, because we're a long ways from Solomon, at least 1,000 years. But it'll give you a little hint of where we're going. And there's other books for you to enjoy. It covers pretty much every bit of interest. But yeah, like, share, subscribe. It always helps the YouTube algorithm to recommend more people to my channel. And after that, we hope you have a fantastic day.